All right. Well, it's you and me, Jeff. So I think we have almost 200 people on, and I think we're going to have another 100 or so. So huge turnout. I want to welcome everybody. This is a special evening for Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum, the Distinguished Speaker Series. And you guys have been treated to some amazing guests, but I don't know, maybe I'm partial, but I don't think it gets bigger than the guests that we have tonight. I don't think you need a big introduction. Everybody knows who you are and what you've accomplished. Mr. Jeff Gordon, hello and welcome, my friend.
Well, hello, Jamie. Pleasure we get to work together, but we don't get to do interviews together like this often. And it's special for me. You know, anytime I think of Indianapolis, you've done meetings through Fox with me before, and you know that trophy sits right behind me on my desk every meeting and is there all the time. The very first Brickyard trophy for me in 1994, which was a very, very special win. So Indianapolis is special to me because I went to high school there and my racing career really kicked off in the state of Indiana. But the Brickyard itself was always a dream of mine, and to be able to win that race, as many times as we did, it's special. So this is a treat for me too. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'm so happy to that you pointed that out. Your one trophy. I mean, God knows how many you achieved in your life and where they are, but the special ones remain in that special office.
Definitely. No, I'm trying to think if there's many. There might not be any other trophies. To be honest, Jamie, I don't keep a whole lot of trophies in this part of my house, but that one's front and center.
I love it. I have a brick from the original, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and that's one of the things I just hold dearest to me. So that's right on my desk too. It's very special. So we want to welcome all of you. Thank you for joining us. We wish that we could be doing this in person because the Distinguished Speaker Series is supposed to be in person. And I got to do one of these before at the actual museum. And it's pretty special and very intimate, but obviously we're all getting used to Zoom. So we hope that you enjoy this as much as we think you will. We do have a couple of housekeeping things to get to. All of your microphones should be muted. And all the questions have been submitted already. So we've already picked the ones that we thought were great. And by the way, I think we've had more for this event and Jeff Gordon than anybody else that we've had. So that says a lot about Jeff and about the fans that he still has. This event is being recorded by Zoom. So we will share it on the IMS Museum YouTube page soon. So be sure to sign up for that and you can see that later on. And in case you didn't know, IMS Museum is an independent 501c3 nonprofit, and they rely on people like you, your friends, fans of racing to keep it going. Hopefully you've been to the museum before, and if you haven't, you have to come down and check it out. It's pretty special. But you could go to indyracingmuseum.org and click on join and give. You can give there, and you can also sign up for, Jeff, I don't know if you've been to the basement at the museum, but you can sign up.
I saw where they're doing basement, tours now. I'm like, wait a minute. I remember when you had to beg and plead, get down your hands and knees to go down to the basement. I've been fortunate to go there once, and it is so special. I think it's so cool that Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the museum are offering that up to the fans.
I think you had to be a champion at one point just to get down there. So it's pretty special that they're offering it. And you can go to tours@brickyard.com if you're interested in maybe doing that. So without further ado, Jeff, I mentioned it. We got a ton of great questions and I love it. I'm going to learn a bunch about you. And I've had the pleasure of working with you for a while now. So I've learned quite a bit. But first off, though, I can't believe it. This is your 5th year in the broadcast booth already, Jeff. Time is flying. What do you think of your role, and especially now that it's changed, adding Clint Boyer?
Jamie, when I first talked to Fox about doing this, I wasn't sure if it was going to fit for them, how it was going to fit for me, if I was going to enjoy it. Transitioning out of competition, driving the race car, and what's the next chapter look like. But I have thoroughly enjoyed it so much. And, as you know, it's a team. It takes a lot of people to pull it together, from, you guys on pit road to people back in a truck nowadays, right? It's LA is contributing to it also. And then, my booth mates, especially, this year with the addition of Clint, but I mean, just Larry and Mike. our producer Barry, it really feels like a race team, and that's what I love so much about it is the debriefs and the ideas and the format and how to make it flow, the adrenaline rush from a live broadcast. I don't think there's any better way to transition out of doing what I was doing behind the wheel than doing TV. So I love it. I'm such a fan. I knew I loved racing, but I've become an even bigger race fan because of doing TV and seeing it a little bit more through the viewer's eyes. I was always so focused on driving the race car and just thinking about how do I win, how do I make the pass, and very serious. And now I get to just look at the entertainment value of racing, of the competitors, the personalities, what happens down on pit road with strategy, and I love it. So I've enjoyed it. It's gone by fast. Can't believe it's been 5 years, as you mentioned, but we're having a lot of fun this year. I mean, I enjoyed working with DW. I learned so much from him. He's a riot. Mike is just, as you know, just an incredible professional, just this guy that has so much knowledge trapped up inside of his head, ready to come out. And he's been doing, broadcasts for such a long time, but, the addition of Clint, I think really balances us all out because I think we're very informative. I think we do a great job of bringing everything that's happening within the race to the viewers. But at least last year when it was just me and Mike, I enjoyed the two of us, but we were missing something. We're just missing a little bit of extra, maybe entertainment or whatever you want to call it. And that's just not me and Mike. Me and Mike, we're we like to just give information and analyze the race. And I like to put myself in the driver's seat and be a competitor. But Clint, you just never know what's going to come next. And I love it. It's so much fun. We're having a blast.
I love the side that he's bringing out in you, Jeff. And, you're doing your job when it's you and Mike, but you add that third party in there and he's wild. You don't know what's going to come out of Clint's mouth. And if he sees something, he's going to say it. So like you said, I think you guys just balance each other so well and people are thoroughly enjoying it together.
Well, and yes, we've had some rivalries on the track. He and I have, we raced hard ever since he came into the Cup Series as a driver. I liked him as a competitor. I liked him, as a friend off the racetrack. But it didn't stop me from trying to teach him some things or push him and see what he was made of on the track. And we had our run-ins, and I think a lot of people just assumed we hated one another because of that. Well, we had a great relationship leading up to Martinsville and then Phoenix. What was that? 2013, 12, 13, and then we had our big moment at Phoenix that everybody's very aware of. And I'll tell you, when I left the track, as mad as I was about what brought that on, it wasn't shortly after that, maybe the next day, it was, why did it have to happen to Boyer? I love this guy. I mean, I love hanging out with him. I love having a beer with him. I love talking racing with him, whatever it may be. And so I hated that was him, that incident happened with. But then we over time, we kind of patched it up for the most part. You can't ever get rid of that, right? There's just no way. I can't get rid of what happened at Martinsville. He'll never get rid of what happened at Phoenix. And so we live with that, but we have a way of addressing it, dealing with it, laughing about it, crying about it. and then our friendship off the track still comes through. And I think that's what's making the dynamic work for all of us.
Well, and he says it, he just said it to me the other night that, in his eyes, like you were somebody he looked up to. You're a legend in his eyes. So I know it's been intimidating a little bit for him to have to stand next to you and be a professional broadcaster. So he's having to learn a lot too, but I love that he hasn't lost who he is. And I think it's brought you out of your shell even more. I think it's been so great.
Well, and Jamie, you got to give Fox a lot of credit because Fox wants people to be themselves and whatever uniqueness that they bring, that they want that to shine. And I think that me and Mike first talked about this when the announcement was made that Clint was coming, is like, how do you think this is going to go? How are we going to deal with Clint? And I loved it. Mike was like, you know what? We got to let Clint just be himself. And we're going to have to try to find a way how to work around it, because he brings so much, so many good things. And I agree with it. I agree with it 100%. And yeah, I think, the clash, he was nervous, just like I was the first time I was up there, not knowing. And every week I see him getting more and more comfortable. And it's just, it's a great, like I said, it's a great balance. So we're having fun. He seems to be having fun. And I think people don't realize the ideas that he likes to bring to that whole car, the rental car thing at Daytona. He had a lot to do with that. We all were, watching the thing that Fox did with Days of Thunder, and a lot of us have always said, "Man, that rental car scene is so great. Wouldn't it be great to recreate that?" But Clint took it a whole nother level. Talked to Barry Landis and Jake Jolly, or pre-race and in-race producers, and said, "Let's do this. We got to do this." And they're like, "There's no way NASCAR or the track will go for it." He's like, "Don't worry, I'll handle that." And he did. He went directly to them, and the thing ended up happening. We had a blast. So he's bringing a lot of great ideas like that too.
And I love how competitive you guys are. That was one of the things. But stay tuned to you fans watching. I have a feeling these two are not done competing against each other.
Oh, listen, as much fun as we're having, we're still competitors, and that's never going to go away. And I mean, while I'm sitting, he doesn't have one of those.
That's right. That's right. All right. Let's get to some of the fan questions. And there's a lot of them, Jeff, and they go back to your early days all the way up until present day. So this first one is from Scott from Metamora, Illinois. You drove a sprint car for McBride, and I think is it Scoff?
Shoaf, yeah, Shoaf.
Shoaf in the 90s, and my good friend helped on the car. There isn't much to talk about because they actually fired you, which was stupid. Could you reflect on those early years and how that motivated you to keep digging?
Well, first of all, I don't know if it was stupid. I tore up a lot of the race cars. It was costing them a lot of money, and wasn't winning enough. That was, one of the big breaks that I had. I had won, quite a few sprint car and midget races leading up, mainly sprint car races. And I drove for my dad, and I drove for a guy named Terry Winterbotham out of Ohio, a couple other people, and had good success locally, a little bit in all stars, but mainly, local around Indiana and Ohio. And this was a team that was, really at a high level. And so that's, of course, what I wanted to do, was get to the World of Outlaws, get, to a full-time big ride in all stars. And they were capable of doing that, and it had, success with other drivers. So I jumped at the opportunity, and it all kind of started. I drove a pavement sprint car for them. And of course, at that time I was running USAC and having great success in USAC on the pavement. And we went and won, I think, the first race that we were together. And so they were like, "Oh, this is amazing. This is great. Hey, Jeff, we want you to drive this sprint car." It was a wing sprint car on pavement, which crazy fast car. But they said, "Hey, what about the dirt sprint car?" And I said, "Of course, I would love to drive that too." And we did okay, but I don't know what it was, Jamie. And I'm a big believer that everything happens for a reason. And for whatever reason, we were fast, but we just tore up a lot of stuff, and just silly stuff. There was a time where somebody spun out in front of me in practice in Sharon, Ohio, big fast half-mile track at that time. And I couldn't avoid the guy, and I hit him, and then I start flipping. And so we're just tearing up a lot of cars, and things just weren't going well. And so eventually they came to me, the owners. They said, "Jeff, we love you, and but this isn't working." And I said, "I agree. I totally agree. You're right. It's not working." And so it taught me a lesson about, I think I was just being over aggressive. I was feeling the pressure. I was trying to make things happen that just weren't. Instead of running fifth that night, I was trying to run third or second, and I just made a lot of mistakes. I was still young, and when that happened, I really put a lot of my energy into more pavement racing as well as NASCAR. And of course, kind of the rest is history on that. So I'm glad they fired me. They made the right decision. Wasn't a stupid one. I don't think I was necessarily. I would, I look at Kyle Larson now, and Kyle and I have talked about this, and he's like, "I don't understand why you didn't run more wing sprint cars." And I told him flat out, I said, the reason is because I wasn't as good as you were or you are. You know, I just, whatever it was, the pavement stuff seemed to be more natural to me. And then when I got the chance to drive the stock car, it just came to me. And so I think that was all meant to be to get me to NASCAR.
How old were you at that point, Jeff? Because I know you started in those cars so young and you were so little.
Yeah, I was 17 probably. So I'd been racing a good 3 or 4 years by that point. So yeah, I think I was 17 because I was racing USAC and back then they gave me special permission to race at 17. You know, you had to be 18 back then to run USAC, but I'd already been racing a lot of stuff by then. So they gave me, you know, a little special waiver to race at 17. And so yeah, I think I was 17, 18. It was right around the time when I was graduating from high school.
Yeah. And you mentioned dirt. I've never asked you this, but how much dirt experience do you have? How many times did you run on dirt?
Yeah, you know, I think that's what a lot of people don't realize because when I came to NASCAR, I stopped running dirt. I ran so 1991 was my first full-time season in NASCAR with the Xfinity or Busch Grand National Series and Bill Davis. And in 91 I ran, I believe, I think I won the midget championship in 91 and then won the USAC championship 92 or it was either 90, you know, and then 91, those two back to back. So I was going and racing NASCAR and then I would immediately get in a plane and go fly and do a dirt race or a pavement race. But from 1985 when I started racing sprint cars at 13 until 1990 when I started doing NASCAR, that's all I did was mainly dirt sprint cars in any track anywhere, you know, 3 days a week. We would go to Ohio and race once or twice, and then Indiana, and then or we'd switch it up another weekend and it'd be a couple of races in Indiana and one in Ohio or Illinois and you know all around. But that's all I did every weekend was race dirt wing sprint cars. And then I got the opportunity to go by Raleigh Helmling, and this goes back to Bob East and the Beast midget chassis. And there happened to be an opportunity. I was looking for a ride to run some midgets. They happened to be looking for a driver, and you know it ended up happening. There was a seat open for Raleigh Helmling's midget, and we went and you know I put my seat in. We kind of helped build the car up and get it ready. And we went there and we won the race the night before the 500 at Indianapolis Raceway Park. And that's really what started my USAC career. So I wasn't, USAC wasn't necessarily on my radar until 1988 or 89.
Wow. That reminds me of the dirt track inside Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I don't know if you've seen any races there, but I went and checked it out. It was awesome. So I highly recommend.
I wish that track had existed back when I was racing. I would have loved that's the kind of track I just shined on is those quarter-mile dirt tracks, especially with a midget. You know, I loved racing midgets and just felt at home and had a lot of success. So I had a lot of confidence in those types of cars. And I've been out to Chili Bowl the last couple of years, and I competed at Chili Bowl a long time ago. I think it was 1989, but we didn't go and do a special car and, you know, really take advantage of all the rules. We made the A main, which now I look back, I was like, wow, that was a big deal. You know, I made the A main at the Knoxville Nationals as well. And so, you know, I did a lot of things that were really cool in those types of cars. But once NASCAR came around, I just got laser focused on NASCAR and had a great opportunity there. I knew I had a fast race car and a good race team. And then of course it even got better after I went from Bill Davis to Rick Hendrick. And you know, for whatever reason, I just didn't feel like going back and running sprint cars and midgets was in the cards for me. And I miss it. I wish I'd have done more of that. Maybe not as much as Larson and some of these guys, but I wish I would have done more.
I think there's a lot of people out there that wish that you would have done more, and particularly run the Indy 500.
Yeah, that's one that got away, you know, because that was my dream. I mean, when I was racing midgets and you know running at Indianapolis Raceway Park, I mean, grew up right in Pittsboro, Indiana, just down the road. And my dream as a kid, when I was even, you know, in quarter midgets, when I looked up to sprint car racers, but I love the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the Indy 500. That was my dream and goal. And then when we moved to Indiana, it's a natural. If you're a race car driver in Indiana, then you want to race Indy cars. and race and compete in the Indy 500. So it wasn't that we didn't try. We tried, but at that time, in the late '80s, the series was changing a bit. More road racing was happening. They didn't do a whole lot of one-off races. I didn't have any rear engine experience. I mean, Rich Vogler went and ran the Indy 500, had decent, moderate success, not great success. Andy Hillenberg. There was a couple other guys that I raced with that were a little bit older, so they were getting those opportunities, but they weren't exploding with opportunities. And so we tried it and met with some different IndyCar owners, and it never worked out. We didn't have a big paycheck to go try to buy a ride. It was going to only happen through meeting somebody, finding a sponsor, and it never worked out. And I am sad about that, because the Indianapolis Motor Speedway has meant so much to me, and my heroes, Rick Mears and AJ Foyt, Rutherford, these guys, that's who I looked up to. And I would have liked to have at least given it a shot one time. And then by the time I really did get the opportunity, much later in my NASCAR career, at that point I was like, why? Like I'm established here. I don't have anything to prove. And I just didn't feel like I could go and do it well.
Jeff, one of the coolest experiences that I've gotten to do, and it involved you, and thanks to you, is when you got to drive the pace car for the Indy 500. I think that was 2016, right?
I believe it was. I think it was a year after I retired.
Yes. Or no, I think it was.
I retired, well, unless it was 16 when I drove for junior, but in 15 that was my final year. No, so it was 15, because I'm pretty sure it was my last year, it was my final year.
Yeah, because we had to get back to Charlotte so you could race that night.
That's right. Yes.
And it
I
was
didn't
hard.
do exactly the double, but sort of.
Right. I remember it was hard to get you away. I think we had to leave after 30 laps. But what was that like for you that morning, Jeff? Everything. I mean, you just mentioned your heroes. They were all there that day.
Well, I as a kid, when even before I got into sprint cars, we would come back to Indiana, because we had some friends that built our race cars, the Stanley family out in Brownsburg. And so we would come and visit them. And when we did, of course, had to go to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, had to go to the museum, all those things, and take the tour around the track. And so one year we finally got to go to the race, and I never had experienced anything like it. I mean, the crowd, the cars, everything. Actually, the first year I went, it was Allington Jr.'s rookie year. So of course you remember that amazing battle late with his dad and Tom Sneva, and so I'll never forget it. And I, after that, I maybe went to one other race before I started NASCAR, and other than that, I had not been to an Indy 500 race until I drove the pace car. And it was just so cool to get back there. Of course, being the pace car driver was special, but to be on the grid, be up close to the cars, the competitors, and there's just no other pageantry of any race in the world like the Indianapolis 500. Just the history, the music, just everything about it has this electricity. I mean, yeah, the Daytona 500 is special, don't get me wrong, but I'm sorry, I'm biased to the Indy 500 and what that is like. It is unreal. So that was really special to me, to be able to be out there on the track, lead the field, look up in the grandstand, see all those people around there, and then pull off and see those cars take the green. It's a memory I'll never forget.
I know those drivers get fired up to see a celebrity driving the pace car in front of them, but I'm pretty sure that day everyone was in awe that you were there, you walked down the grid, you saw everybody, and then you led them to green. It was pretty cool.
Well, I don't know about that, but it's special for me. But I no doubt I have like I said, the heroes of mine, but friends also.
Right.
Race car drivers find these ways of mingling or coming across one another and building friendships over the years, and so that was really cool to see some of those guys.
Yeah. All right. I don't want to take up all the questions. So here's one from Hannah in Carroll County, Maryland. My name is Hannah, and this isn't a question, but if you do listen to this, my dad was a huge fan of you in NASCAR. He passed away February 2nd. And I was wondering if you could do a shout out for him. His name was Jeff Watkins. Thank you.
Oh, well, I'm so sorry for your loss, and um, definitely want to send my sincerest thoughts and prayers to your dad, Jeff. I can't forget that name, right?
I know.
So, I come across some of the most amazing fans over the years, and to hear their stories of how they maybe grew up watching a race with their family, or who introduced them to racing, and their experiences at the track, or meeting a driver, meeting me. That now that I'm removed from the driver's side, that those are the things that matter the most to me, and memories I want to make for my kids, because when somebody's had a special attachment through racing with their family, and like a daughter to a dad, or son to a dad, that that's so cool. That is so cool. And I just I love the interaction that I get to have with race fans, to hear those stories.
That's awesome, Hannah. Thank you for sending that in. All right, this one is from Billy in Felton, Delaware. Aside from your personal accomplishments at IMS, what are your favorite moments from the Speedway and the Indy 500? We kind of just touched on that, but do you have kind of one memory that stands out?
I do have one. So trying to think, it must have been around the time they were announcing the Brickyard 400. I don't know that we had actually raced the first Brickyard 400. So it was either sometime around 94, maybe 93, but I wasn't a big golfer. I got into golf because somebody told me that Benny Parsons was coming to Indianapolis. And of course, I was with, at that time, doing races that were live on ESPN, Terry Lingner Group. And so they all knew that I was interested in either going to IndyCars or NASCAR. And so Benny Parsons was coming into town. So I think it was Terry Lingner said, reached out. He said, "Hey, Benny Parsons coming to town. He likes to play golf. We're going to play golf. Do you play golf?" I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Well, would you like to come out and meet Benny?" I'm like, "Yes." And so I went out and hit a few golf balls, and went and played golf with Benny. It was embarrassing as can be. I just hit the ball all over the place, but had a great interaction with Benny. Loved him, and that friendship blossomed after that. But what it did do was make me look at playing more golf, and so I started doing a little bit more, taking lessons, and then I got invited to the Brickyard. So maybe it must have been after the first Brickyard, but it was when they built the Brickyard Crossing course and they were launching it. Pete Dye was the course designer, and they had all the pros come in. They did this pro-am, and I got teamed up with Greg Norman and Pete Dye and Peter Jacobs. I don't know, remember who the third was. And so we, here we are. I'm on the tee box with Greg Norman, the designer of the course, and I can't play golf very well, but I've been trying, and so I was just thankful to just even get it off the first tee, not hit anybody, which I've done that in a golf tournament too. I won't tell that story tonight, but anyway, in this one, so we had this great tournament. I got to interact with Greg Norman, who I became a huge fan of, friend. We stayed in touch. He's really the one that introduced me to scuba diving, because he was telling me all these things about scuba diving. I became a scuba diver after that. And, I had one great shot that day that I'll never forget. It was a best ball. We were all trying to pitch it up onto the green, and I was closest to the hole of all of us. And I was like, yes, I got it closer than Greg Norman. That was a one and only time all day, but we won that tournament. And so, I love that experience, and running into Greg Norman every once in a while still today, and talk about that memory and that experience.
That is so cool. That is one of the things about that track that just, I love it. You have to go play golf when you're there. It's just, you can't explain playing golf, especially when it's a practice day during the month of May. That's amazing.
Yeah, the only other memory that I have inside is the Chainsmokers, who is a band, or a group that I love. That's kind of music that I like to listen to. They performed in the infield a few years back, And so I got to go over there and meet them, and now I'm friends with them. I see them all over the world now, and
Oh,
go visit them, see their performances, and to know that they performed in the infield of Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and there was a big crowd out there that night. It was really cool.
they know how to put on a party, that's for
Well,
sure.
and you said it, Jamie, that they were qualifying maybe for Xfinity or something was going on the track. So there were cars going around the track while it was
Yeah,
going on, and that was a cool experience.
that's awesome. Here's one from a town you know of well, Jeff, Pittsboro, Indiana. Would you ever consider hopping in a sprint or midget again for some old time fun like Tony Stewart does? Maybe even a midget for the BC 39 here at IMS.
I wouldn't mind maybe getting in a car, making some laps by myself, not necessarily to go do it and race. I respect the competitors and the people that have experience in those cars far too much. I mean, like I told you, I went out to Chili Bowl this year and watched Chase Elliott take that challenge on. And listen, it doesn't matter how much racing knowledge or talent you have, or what, if you haven't been in those cars in a while, it's not just going to come naturally. And I've learned that I'm the type of person, I rarely do something unless I think I can be pretty good at it. And so those days are behind me. I Going out and just running some laps, I think would be fun. And actually, Alex Bowman and I have talked a little bit, maybe Mill Bridge or something. If they're out there, that's a local track here in North Carolina. If they go out there and maybe there's not a big ledge on the cushion, I might get out there. I'm closing in on 50, Jamie. There's no reason I need to be out there getting behind the wheel of a midget to try to prove anything to these kids. I don't need to do that. Been there, done that.
You don't look a day over 40, by the way. Whatever you're doing is working, Jeff.
Oh, you're sweet. You can thank my mom for that.
No. Hey, I just got an idea too. You and Boyer get in a midget and go toe to toe for like 10 laps. We need to make it happen somewhere. Maybe the dirt track.
Now, see, now you're talking, because I need motivation, and beating Boyer is huge motivation for me. I'm all for that. We're supposed to maybe do something for Bristol, that dirt race there. We might have some fun out there. We'll see what we do. I don't think it'll be in a midget, but maybe in something full fender.
Do something that he doesn't have much of a background in. Just like, hey, we're gonna go do this.
Oh no, I listen. Still today, I'd spank him in a midget. There's no doubt.
I love it. All right, this is from Lee from Pendleton, Indiana. It was so fun watching you on ESPN's Thursday Night Thunder, a teenager beating the USAC legends of the day. Any good stories similar to the Gordon versus Earnhardt you can share with us, like any rivalries?
Well, the big rivalry was Rich Vogler. He was just legendary in the USAC midgets and sprint car silver crown, and so here comes this punk kid and wins the first race, and I can tell you that got under his skin pretty quick, and it quickly became a rivalry. It was usually between him or me, especially in the midgets, out there racing. So one night he made a big move, this slide job, and it didn't work. It didn't make it. I ended up wrecked. He was wrecked, and it was another one of those meant to be moments of the lesson that I learned from it, because I came storming off the racetrack after we wrecked, and the cameras coming through the infield to meet me live on ESPN, and they put the microphone in my mouth, or in front of my mouth, and I went off. I just went off on Rich Vogler, and I realized that day, okay, you've gotta compose yourself. It all it did is make me look like a punk. It didn't actually get my point across that I didn't think what Rich did was right. But yes, I learned a lesson that day. There was another moment. So the team that he raced for, in the sprint cars. Oh gosh, my mind's gonna go blank right now. But the '69 sprint car. So they had. Rich would drive for them in the sprint cars, but he was driving the Indy car and practicing or getting ready for the Indy 500. And so they asked me if I would practice the car. They've been working through some different rack and pinion steering, got this new car, and this car had been evil. Rich I remember talking to him one time. He's like, man, we cannot figure this car out. It's just a bear to drive. and can't get it to work. So they came to me and said, "Hey, would you mind running some laps? We think we've got the situation sorted out with the steering." I was like, "Are you sure? I don't think Rich would like that very much." They're like, "No, no, Rich would be fine with it. Don't worry." And they're like, "Just go out there and take it easy." And I'm like, "Okay." I went out there, second lap, boom, spin out, back it in the wall, and the car's junk. And I mean, they didn't fix it. I can tell you that they hadn't fixed the steering, let alone the car that they're going to have to fix to get it ready to go race. And I was so worried. I was like, "Oh man, when Rich gets here, he's going to be so mad." And so I was walking through the pit area, and here comes Rich from the track over at Indy, and I'm like, "Uh-oh!" And he walks straight up to me. He's like, "Hey, I heard you wrecked." And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Thank you. That thing is so evil. I've been telling them, they haven't been listening to me. Maybe they'll listen to you." So I think that was the one time that Rich and I agreed on something.
Oh, that is so funny. Thanking you for helping him out. That's hilarious. Okay. Robert from Darlington, Indiana. Several of your peers ran the Indy 500 Coke 600 doubleheaders and had success. Can you share why you never considered it? I guess you kind of touched on that, Jeff. It was always a dream, but you just never had a reason to. You did everything there was to do in NASCAR, right?
I mean, I guess if Roger Penske had come and said, "Hey, Jeff, would you like a ride at Indy?" I would have gone to Rick Hendricks and say, "Okay, hang on a second. This is not just me piecing something together and to do the double. This is Roger Penske, or a car that could win the Indy 500." But even if that had happened, and I, that I mean, I would like to have driven for Roger. I must say that, Rick Hendricks, the greatest NASCAR owner, but Roger Penske is the greatest IndyCar owner, and I've just always admired him. Also, Rick Mears, my hero, drove for him,
Mm.
so that would have been hard to pass up, but that never came. But even if it had, Jamie, I would have really had to weigh out. You've got the month of May, all the laps, everything it takes to get yourself ready, and even then, I don't know if you're really ready, right? Because these guys are racing these cars every single weekend. But that time that I would have had to have taken to get prepared for the race, and the time it would have taken away from our efforts with the Cup team and Hendrick and that 24 car, I just don't know if I would have felt good about it. So that was my thing is I've got a winning team that has a chance to go out and win every weekend, win the championship, almost every year. And I never wanted to take anything away from that. I wanted to give everything I could. And I certainly never wanted to be the weakest link. That was my big thing is every weekend my goal, don't be the weak link. Don't make a mistake on pit road. Don't take us out of the race on a restart. Don't miss a shift, whatever it could be. I never wanted to be the weak link. And I just always felt like if I went and did too many other things, I would become the weak link, and I wouldn't have been proud of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're going to have to give it 100%. That's why I give such kudos to like Kurt Busch. I mean,
Yeah.
he was both, and to be able to do what he did with limited time in the seat.
Oh, I love what these guys. I'm fascinated to watch it, and I admire their abilities and talents to go do it. I thought Kurt did incredible. Even look at Tony, Stewart, how he ran Indy cars and won that championship, came over and then ran so well in Indy cars or in NASCAR, and then what he's doing today in sprint cars. I admire the heck out of that. It's just not me. It's not my personality. It's not the way that I do things. I'm very kind of I get centered and focused on one thing, and I try to be as good as I can at that. My wife would tell you the same thing. I'm not good at multitasking.
Yes, Tony Stewart, he is an animal.
Yep.
Never know what he's going to do. All right, this is John in New Mexico. Jeff, going back to your test with the Williams Formula One car in 2003 at IMS on the road course, do you recall what were the biggest differences between that and your Cup car, and what you liked most about F1?
Well, I was an F1 fan before that, but I became a much bigger F1 fan after that because it's one of the coolest experiences. You get a chance if you're a pilot and you fly a Cessna single engine plane, and you get a chance to go fly an F-16. It's the greatest experience ever. And driving a race car, there's no other race car that drives like an Indy, like a Formula One car. It does everything. I mean, it accelerates, it just plants you in the seat. You step on the brakes, it, whips your head forward, the cornering, the grip, everything. It's just unbelievable. It's designed for that. So it couldn't be more opposite than NASCAR. NASCAR to me really makes the driver have to play this role of finesse and not overdriving the car, and the car is just constantly out of control and sliding. The Formula One car is how much can I push my body physically to get the most out of the car, because the car is capable of doing almost more than your body is. And that just fascinated me, that a race car, I didn't think a car could do that until I experienced it myself. So another one of those, as soon as I did it, I was like, I want to drive a Formula One car. Now, the thing that probably, well, of course, there was a lot of factors in, because I did actually get an offer to do it, but it was, you had to go test this, drive this, maybe run some IndyCar races. It was basically like, okay, take the next 5 years of your life and build your career up to then become a Formula One driver. And I was already so established within NASCAR that I just didn't see that, as a possibility, even though I was interested, intrigued by it, because the car was incredible. The other side of it was, and you know me, Jamie, I'm 5'8" on a good day. And, I was fit, but I don't have tree trunks for legs. And I'm telling you, to push the brake pedal on that Formula One car, you better have, a leg muscle that would just blow your mind, and then neck muscles. And so the training regimen that I was going to have to get into to just go, I ran 3 laps. I think we went out and ran like 3 or 4 laps, came in, ran 3 or 4 laps. I think we did that 3 or 4 times. By the 3rd lap, I couldn't hold my head up. I literally was just, my neck was done. So that thing is a monster. And so, it was fun to do. And I love that I ran good in it, that I put good times up. And that's what I have to kind of fall back on now, is what maybe could have been. But again, just one of those timing things. If it is one thing in my career, my life, it's timing. My timing has been really good to get myself, aligned to have great success with great people surrounding me. And the timing just wasn't there for Indy cars or Formula One.
Sometimes it pays off just to be focused on that one goal, and that.
Oh, I have no complaints, complaints. And not everybody gets to drive a Formula One car either. And so made some great friends over there and got to drive that car. And I still talk to some of the Williams family still to this day. As a matter of fact, that's my other pride and joy, is this right here. So this is actually the steering wheel off the Formula One car that I drove that day at Indianapolis. So thank you to the Williams folks for giving me that.
Oh, that is awesome. Did you talk to Jimmy at all after he got to test? What was it, 2 years ago now?
Yeah, I talked to him before and after, and I knew exactly what that was going to do to him. I mean, same thing that Tony experienced, I experienced. When you've been driving big, heavy stock cars that slide around a lot and aren't designed to handle and perform like a Formula One car, and then you get to drive that, it really it makes you giddy. I mean, you just like, wow, and the adrenaline rush that you get from it is unbelievable. So yeah, Jimmy felt the same way. He absolutely loved it.
And now look at him.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
He's car racing.
Yeah, I think now he's going, okay, I need that power or that steering assist that they have in Formula One and the IndyCar. I tell you what, Jimmy is just an amazing competitor, and he loves to take on a big challenge. And if anybody can do it, it's Jimmy Johnson. And I racing against him. I've always said this, probably one of the best race car driver I ever competed against. And it's a big challenge, but I admire him for taking it on. And I think he's going to do a great job. It doesn't mean that he's going to go out there and be the fastest on the track day one, but I think you're going to see his work ethic of how he progresses each and every week. And I think a lot of us are going to be tuned in to watch.
Well, he's putting in the time and the effort. Every time you check on Twitter, he's testing somewhere else. So there's a lot of buildup. I know we're all excited to see how he does.
Absolutely.
So that leads what you were saying about F1 into this next question. Evan from New York, any drivers outside the US that you still keep in touch with?
Yeah, Mark Webber, Formula One driver for Red Bull, he and I met, trying to think where we met. We may have met, I think we met actually through Exalta. We were at an Exalta event at a Formula One race overseas, and we exchanged numbers, and he said, "Hey, one day I want to come to either Chili Bowl or Knoxville." And I said, "You tell me which one you want to do, and I want to be your host." And so he and his wife came a couple of years ago. We went to Knoxville, and just so happened that Exalta was a sponsor on David Gravel's car. So he was with me for that weekend, and we had a blast at the track. But then we also won the race with Exalta, and David Gravel won that race. So to be a part of the winning organization like that, he'll reach out to me every once in a while and just say, "Man, I still can't get over Knoxville with you and winning," and it's just a crazy experience. And I've told him, I'm like, "All right, Chili Bowl, Chili Bowl's next." And when I was at Chili Bowl this year, I was texting him. He's like, "Oh my God, I want to go." So I keep up with him. Certainly, Lewis Hamilton's a guy that I was able to he came to my final race. Well, sort of my final race at 15. And I always admired him, looked up, to him and his abilities and what he's doing in Formula One, and stay in touch with him. And it's just funny, a lot of these guys like that, you just randomly run into them when you least expect it. And I was vacationing in Greece several, 4 or 5 years ago now, and just sitting at this restaurant, and somebody said, "Oh, Lewis Hamilton's over there." I was like, "What? No way." So I went over and said hi to him, and he came over and sat down and hung out with my family. So just an all around great guy. So I'll touch base with him every once in a while.
Yeah, I'd love to meet him. Do you think he'll ever come over and race the Indy 500 or Daytona 500? I know he's kind of put some teasers out there.
Yeah, you never know with a guy like that. What's he's one of those guys where if he's got a bucket list, it's probably a pretty long one, and he gets to check them off. So
I know.
he jumps out of airplanes. I would see why he wouldn't want to try to take on the Indy 500. Not sure that that's on his list, but be cool to see. I think we'd all enjoy seeing that, or NASCAR.
Yeah, well, it's been fun seeing the Formula One drivers come over, actually make the switch to IndyCar. We're going to see that again this year too. So I love seeing it and seeing, they still have that zest, and to get in a different style of car. Sure, it's similar to F1, but it's so different. So it's going to be fun this year seeing those guys.
Yes.
Okay, DJ in California, what driver or former driver beyond Dale Earnhardt was the biggest thorn in your side, and how did they make you become a better driver?
Well, I just said it. Jimmy Johnson, not only one of the best race car drivers I ever raced against, but because he was my teammate in good equipment like I was in, he got a lot of the wins too. And I think there was one year, I think it was it was either 07 or I think it was 07, when both of us had great cars, great teams. We're trading off wins that year and went into the playoffs, and always get the years mixed up, but in that playoff, and Jimmy had already, I think, won a couple championships up to that point, but I felt like we not had him covered, but had something for him, and we had been getting beat on a pretty regular basis by them. At that time, I had won the championship in 01, then he came on in 02, and I think I maybe finished ahead of him in the points in 02 or 03, and then after that, it was just all Jimmy. Over at Hendrick. And so that forced me to up my game. What was he doing that he was bringing that was new? And it's hard not to get over content, or I don't want to say lazy. I don't think I was ever lazy, but you just, you go, okay, hey, this is what's worked for me in the past. I'll just keep doing that. And you don't always recreate yourself or put, added effort into things to find that success. And so when a guy like Jimmy comes in, and he starts, beating not just you, but everybody, you're going, okay, I'm going to see what he's doing, because he certainly picked my brain to try to learn everything I was doing before he got, in the car, and the success that he had. So, I started trying to return the favor. And in 07, I think we really had something. Didn't work out. He still was the man. And we had, I would say that was probably the first time when we had a real rivalry because the other times I felt like he was not just beating me, he was beating everybody. This particular year, it was more beating me. And so you can't help it, no matter who that is, that get under your skin a little bit. But Jimmy and I, we came into it friends, and we ended our career as friends. And even though we had some moments like that along the way, we can still, now we can look back and laugh and smile about them.
It's pretty awesome. And that just reminded me of something, Jeff, that really makes you stand out. I was talking to somebody about this the other day, that you were a winner all the way up until your last season. When you walked away, you still won and you still made it to the championship. I mean, I know that Jimmy would have loved to have done that, and he tried, he gave it his all, but he couldn't. And most people don't. So it's very commendable what you were able to do.
Well, thank you. And that's why I go back to the timing. I mean, you look at it, right? Jimmy won in 16, won the championship that year, and things just did not go so well for he and the team over the next couple of years. And if anybody deserved to go out on top, it was Jimmy. And for me, how I aligned later in my career with Alan Gustafson, amazing crew chief, and our cars at Hendrick were really strong. So really 13, 14, and 15 were really great years for me. And it was so much fun to be going to the racetrack, competing at that level and pushing myself. Again, I go back to things that I learned from Jimmy, just, get myself in better physical shape, just analyzing the data more, using the technology, communication, just spending more time with the team, and going back to that, not wanting to be the weak link. And Alan was the kind of guy where, and this is why he has success, and has had success for a long time, is he doesn't mind pushing you. If he thinks that you need to be better in an area, he's going to push you. And it doesn't matter who you are and what you've accomplished. That's your role as a driver. That's his role as a crew chief. And I appreciated that. And because he pushed me and the things I learned from Jimmy and the good race cars and teams that we had at that time, I was able to really dedicate myself, and I kind of knew, right? I kind of knew my time was winding down, and that I because of the back issues that I had, and just where the career was kind of heading. Of course, I knew a lot more when Chase Elliott started to come along, and we were having those conversations. I was like, okay, this could work out really well. But so we kind of knew, we planned this out. But those last couple of years, I said, man, I am going to push myself as hard as I could, to try to go out, winning races and maybe, win a championship. And we came so close. 14 was really the year, right? We made the Final Four in 15, but 14 was the year we should have won the championship. And we all know about the incident with Keselowski at Texas, but there was some other factors that played into us not getting to Homestead. But I think we could have won the championship that year. So yeah, I'm really proud of the timing and the way everything worked out for me to leave the sport.
Yeah, so competitive to the end. This is the last question we have time for. This is from Presley from Horn Lake, Mississippi. I'm an avid collector of your die-cast cars. What was your favorite paint scheme throughout your career? Any one-off schemes that stand out?
It's funny because I think at Indianapolis Motor Speedway now we're on this Zoom, and there was a Looney Tunes paint scheme it was this landscape. It was what we call the chrome illusion paint that Axalta had this iridescent look to it, kind of bluish, greenish purple, really cool under the sun. But then it had this landscape around the bottom and I was a Looney Tunes fan growing up as a kid, so. I think Elmer Fudd and Bugs Bunny and all that along the bottom of this car. One of the coolest race cars I ever drove. Unfortunately, I think I wrecked it like turn one. So we ran that car twice, if I'm not mistaken, with that paint scheme. And both times were horrendous results, but didn't stop it from being one of my favorite race cars and paint schemes. But I am a little biased. The black car with the orange and yellow flames. I put a lot of energy and effort into that because I love flames as a kid. I love flames. I had a race car as a quarter midget as a kid that we rarely really put a lot into paint schemes, but this one particular car my dad said, "Hey, we're gonna paint this one up. How would you like it painted?" And I was like, "I want it black with flames." And so I had the helmet with the flames, the car with the flames. I mean, when I got in that car, I just thought I was the coolest kid on the planet. And so later in my NASCAR career, we had an opportunity to change up some paint schemes. And most people know that the flame paint scheme with DuPont, right? We had the rainbow car, and then they wanted to switch it up. We went to the flames, but they kept that bluish green base. I wanted that car, and so did Sam Bass, who was helping design that, to be black. But it was already a big departure from what we had. So they said, let's keep the colors. We'll just go with the flames. I'm like, okay, cool. It's still a cool, very cool paint scheme. But then later down the road with Exalta, and maybe it was DuPont first, but then Exalta, they said, hey, what about, what do you want to do? And I was like, I still want to go back to black with the flames. And so I'm probably somewhat biased to that car because of the history that has and the memories I have as a kid and just how cool it looked.
It did, all your paint schemes, gosh. And I just love that William Byron is bringing back that Rainbow Warriors bright scheme. It's awesome.
It's so cool. When that came out and they launched it, and so many, I saw it on social media, so many people responding to it in a positive way and linking it back to, when I first came into NASCAR and DuPont had all the bright colors with the rainbow car. And this is that modern, play off of that. And everybody always told me along the way, well, I went my first NASCAR race and somebody said, I need to pick a driver. And I just picked the brightest car. I'm not going to be able to miss that car. I want to be able to see the car out there. I picked that one. It happened to be you. Or people tell me, oh, at home, I told the kids, hey, pick a car, pick a driver. And they would just gravitate towards that bright rainbow colored race car. And there's a lot to that. And so Exalta has always been interested in doing that. And they pulled it off. And now, of course, they always look good when they go to victory lane. So that was pretty cool to see William win that race. It did a great donut, by the way, and burnout. That was so cool too.
It looked awesome. Well, we are out of time, Jeff. It's been so much fun. It's always fun catching up with you, but hopefully we had hundreds of people on here watching and listening and who submitted their questions. So thank you.
No, thank you, Jamie. You and I have been friends a long time. Love the work that you do, whether it's in racing or outside of racing, but also being a teammate of yours at Fox. And I knew we'd have some fun and get some great questions. So great job to you. And just thank you to everybody at Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the museum. Just always a special place for me in my heart. Always will. And the people around Indiana, especially those people out in Pittsboro that send in questions. Thank you guys very much. And hope to be back there soon.
Yes, and just a couple things to let you guys know. Remember, go to indyracingmuseum.org and click on join and give. They've got to get those funds, and you guys have to come visit to keep it going. They have some incredible cars. Just, you have to go and see it. And I mean, on top of that, Jeff, you mentioned it. You could take the bus tour around the track and check that out. So be sure to go to their website, check that out, sign up so that you can be sure to see all of these chats, this distinguished speaker series, which is incredible. So there's going to be a couple of announcements coming up very soon. So be sure to be on that mailing list. And there's a new exhibit coming May 1st that you will not want to miss. If you loved racing in the 80s and 90s, you'll like it. And that's it. So this will be on Zoom. Jeff, it's been awesome. And I'll see you in a few days. You can all see us on Sunday on Fox.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Thank you, everybody.